right, well, Steve Daniels is in the Breaking News Center with some new video in and also some new information for us. Steve?
Fred and Tisha here in the Breaking News Center. Since this earthquake hit, we have been getting phone calls and emails and concern, obviously, from a lot of people throughout the viewing area. We've also been getting video, and if you know of surveillance video or video that you have and you'd like to share it with us, you can certainly upload it directly to our website. Go to the U Report link on our website at abc11.com. But let's take a look at this video right now, and I can play it for you, and I can set it up for you. This is from a business in Raleigh near the farmers market called Supersod, and just take a look at this. This is fed into us via U Report, powered by YouTube, and you can see there, this is what they describe as the moment the earthquake hit. Normally, this sod business near the farmers market, this camera is just still. But here, let's replay it. We can take another look at it here. They say that that does show the earthquake as it was happening, the jiggling of the camera. And that's what we're hearing from a lot of people, this jolt, something unusual certainly for us here in this part of North Carolina. I was in the car. I didn't happen to feel it at the time, but my kids say they felt it at home in Wake County and felt this jolt. I grew up in Southern California and lived through many earthquakes in my younger years as a small child, and they're really terrifying. And you know, having not felt this one today, I can't tell you what this felt like relative to some of the earthquakes I've been through in Southern California. But I went through some significant ones, earthquakes that actually brought down overpasses, freeway overpasses, where there was absolute destruction in Southern California, and they're terrifying because you don't know how significant it's going to be, how long it's going to last, what kind of earthquake it's going to be, if it's going to be the rolling kind of earthquake or a jolting kind of earthquake. And as we've been learning this afternoon, we've gotten a very quick education here in North Carolina about earthquakes this afternoon, and the depth plays a role. Obviously, the magnitude on the Richter scale plays a significant role as well. But I grew up as a kid where we would have drop drills in our schools, earthquake drills in the school, and this is something that people in the West certainly learn, that you go to a door jamb, you get under a desk, you get under a very sturdy table, you go anywhere you possibly can to try to get out of debris, get away from windows, and get away from anything that could be collapsing, and try to get into the interior of the building as well, the most fortified part of that. But again, this is what's coming in right now, this information into the Breaking News Center, more eyewitness accounts of people feeling this. For many people in this part of the country, of course, this is a first feeling this kind of earthquake, and it is unsettling. We've been hearing, of course, from people from Washington, closer to the epicenter of this earthquake in Virginia, who have been saying they thought it was some kind of attack or an explosion in the Washington, D.C. area. We heard that the Capitol building was immediately evacuated. They went to work quickly there. Of course, since 9/11, they have plans to evacuate the Capitol building very quickly. And as we take a look here at our live feeds coming in from Washington this afternoon, we're looking at the Washington Monument. We know there is some structural concern there right now. They've been sending engineers into the Washington Monument, checking it out for any structural damage. And that is the story throughout Washington and New York this afternoon. This is a live feed we're getting in. The D.C. area, perhaps Baltimore, in fact, we're trying to get a closer location, but you can see unreinforced masonry buildings like this, brick buildings. That's where you find the damage in an earthquake. If they don't have steel rebar or aren't reinforced to much of a degree, then you're going to find this, bricks that have fallen apart. The water tower on top of that building you see. This is an affiliate feed from one of our affiliates in the Washington, D.C. area. You can see lots of people up there on the building as well. I've heard that in other parts of Washington, D.C., even in new buildings this afternoon, those buildings are being evacuated, and people are being told to stay outside. Some buildings, people are being allowed to go back inside to get their belongings and then leave. But structural engineers are going through a lot of buildings, even up into New York, but especially in the Washington, D.C. area this afternoon, as they try to determine the structural integrity of these buildings. Of course, they don't want people going back inside when there could be the risk of aftershocks. And that is something, of course, we're learning all about this afternoon, but aftershocks will continue. There have been aftershocks this afternoon. And there certainly is going to be concern about these buildings and the aftershocks, and they just don't want people going back inside these buildings. Most modern buildings, of course, throughout the country are built to withstand all kinds of things that Mother Nature can bring, whether it's an earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane. But some older buildings, like that one we were just watching in the Washington, D.C. area from that live feed, that looks like an older building, a brick building. It may be unreinforced masonry, and that's why there is concern there, and especially when you see that water tower that has in some part fallen apart, and there's the chimney there that's fallen apart. There is concern there as well. We continue monitoring developments all across the East Coast. You may have heard too that some of the New York area airports were shut down this afternoon. The JFK airport was shut down for a time because the control tower, there were questions about the control tower, and they wanted to evacuate the air traffic controllers from there and then do an inspection, a full inspection of the JFK airport. So there are flight delays from the RDU airport this afternoon going to the New York area airports, and they are trying to get that air traffic moving again, but there are certainly concerns in the New York area about that right now. And here in the capital city, as we take a live look at the downtown Raleigh skyline, certainly the story here is the talk. Everybody talking about this earthquake, what they felt. The feeling you were going to have is going to be different based on the kind of building you were in. Here at Eyewitness News, there were a lot of people who were in the newsroom who felt it. If you're in a taller building, of course, depending on the engineering of that building, you're going to have a different sensation than you are in your house. If you're walking on the street, you may or may not feel that. So it really depends on where you are, what you felt, and the kind of story you're going to be able to tell about this as you talk to your friends through the afternoon. But the social media in the Triangle this afternoon was really exploding. People were posting on Twitter and Facebook. Did you feel that? It felt like an earthquake. People were wondering what in the world this was. Could it have possibly have been an earthquake here in this area? And now we know it was north of Richmond. That's where the earthquake was, the epicenter of the earthquake. And it's you know, something that radiated out there. You can see here, based on this graphic that Chris Homan put together, it was felt down here to the south into North Carolina. They're saying it was felt even up into Canada today, and certainly there through the Washington, D.C. area, up into Philadelphia and New York, and west into West Virginia as well. So people all across our region of the country talking about this earthquake tonight. But the incredible part is, amazingly, we're not seeing or hearing reports of significant damage. And that is really pretty amazing when you consider the magnitude of this earthquake. When you see these kinds of earthquakes in different parts of the world, a 5.9 magnitude earthquake, you know, it can cause substantial damage. It can cause substantial damage and substantial injury, depending on where this kind of thing happens, and depending, as we've been hearing from seismologists this afternoon, there's so many different variables here. It can depend on the depth, the magnitude. There's so many different things that factor into this, and of course the kind of soil you have where you live, and what kind of construction you have with the various the buildings where you happen to be. So there's so many different variables. Thankfully, though, we're not getting reports of significant damage anywhere. But again, if you're just joining us, just tuning in, as we take a live look at the RDU airport, where there are flight delays this afternoon to the New York area airports. A lot of planes have not been able to get out of New York. They've been grounded, and they can't, of course, get here to get passengers and flights bound from RDU to the New York area airports. They are backed up this afternoon as well because of those concerns in the control towers in the New York area. But what we can tell you, it was a 5.9 magnitude earthquake. That's the latest indication we have. The epicenter was in Mineral, Virginia, and it was felt primarily by people, of course, in that part of Virginia, but also into Washington. And of course, there has been a lot of concern coming up on the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks that there could be some kind of attack planned by Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has certainly threatened that. The Department of Homeland Security is on alert. So you can imagine, for people in Washington, D.C. this afternoon, When they felt that shaking, they did not know what to expect. A lot of people in their office buildings went running to the windows, looking outside, trying to make sense of exactly what was happening. And fortunately, it was not an attack, but it was obviously, now we know, an earthquake. And they have been adjusting the magnitude from 5.9 to 5.8. They continue taking a look at this and taking a look at the seismology information and trying to get a better sense of this earthquake and exactly what was made of this earthquake. And they often go back and they will take a look at this and take a look at the dynamics associated with an earthquake, and they will take another look at the magnitude, and they sometimes adjust it down, sometimes up, and they then study this and find out much more what this particular earthquake was made of, and the components of it. This is a very rare event, obviously, not unheard of in this part of the country, but it is a rare event nonetheless, and it's certainly something we'll be talking about for a very long time. But again, the most critical thing and the most important thing is the fact that there has not been any significant damage anywhere that we've seen. We did see that live feed coming in from somewhere in the Washington, D.C. area, where a chimney partially collapsed on top of an apartment building, also connected to a water tower as well.